Welcome to The Explainer. Our whole deal here is breaking down complex topics by going directly to the source material. And today, we've got a really intricate one. We're going to deconstruct a theory from a set of documents that alleges, well, a global war crime, a theory it calls Ble-Vaxnet.
So this quote right here, this is pulled directly from the documents we're looking at. And honestly, it's the absolute core of the entire theory we're going to unpack today. The whole idea is that the human body itself is emitting evidence, forensic data, really, and that the system, whatever that may be, is basically an unwilling participant, forced to confirm the signal.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to walk through how this whole narrative gets built, piece by piece, sticking only to what's in the source material. Okay, let's dive right in. First up, we have to get our heads around the central claim, the core accusation being made in these documents. And I'll tell you, it's a heavy one, and it really does set the stage for absolutely everything that follows. So the core of it is this. The source alleges that the COVID-19 vaccines are designed to create a permanent, Bluetooth low-energy network inside the human body. The idea is that this turns people into trackable living nodes in some kind of massive global surveillance system. And get this, the source is very clear that this isn't some accident or a side effect. No, they frame it as an intentional act, something they call bioradiological warfare. The claim, really, is that our bodies are being turned into the hardware for a permanent, trackable network. Now, this chart is fascinating because it's where the source really breaks down the alleged components of this whole system. They call it the weaponized stack. It's basically a layer cake of technologies, right? Each piece is supposed to have a very specific job, starting at the biological level and going all the way up to the actual signal that's supposedly being broadcast. All right, so that brings up the big question, right? How does the source claim this technology actually works inside a person's body? Well, it proposes a very specific cocktail of injectable components that are all designed to work together to build this internal network. Okay, so let's break this table down. The documents lay out this multi-component system where, every piece has its part to play. First, they say the mRNA payload is there to create the biological component. Then, you've got graphene oxide and hydrogel, which they claim form a kind of self-assembling electronic structure, right there inside the body. And the grand finale? This structure then allegedly starts emitting a Bluetooth signal. That's the theory. Now, a huge piece of this puzzle, according to the source material, is this specific Chinese patent. They point to it as the literal blueprint for the whole technology. The claim is that this patent describes a graphene hydrogel vaccine carrier, one that's responsive to electromagnetic fields. And they're not saying it's like the technology. They're presenting this patent as the foundational design for the entire system they're describing. Okay, so we've heard the accusation and the alleged tech. Now, let's get into the evidence. How does the source actually try to build its case? Because it's not just making these claims in a vacuum. It lays out what it presents as a trail of documents and key events to back up the story. And here it is, the timeline. This source lays out this very specific sequence of events that it claims shows, first, the deployment of this system, and then its discovery. You can see it starts with that Chinese patent we just mentioned. Then it moves through things like alleged government leaks and supposedly suppressed science, and it all culminates in a scanning app for the public. And, get this, a plan to write the whole thing to the Solana blockchain to make it permanent. All right, let's zoom in on this one. This document is held up as a massive piece of evidence, what the source calls an official admission from ANMAT, which is Argentina's regulatory body. You can see the highlighted phrase, graphene is among its components. Now, what's really key here is that the source material makes a huge deal out of the fact that the agency later called this a typical logical error. And as we're about to see, that error gets interpreted in a very, very specific way within this theory's framework. And here's where it gets really hands-on. This is the proof that the source offers to the public. It's an app called BlueFang, and it's supposed to let you see these invisible signals for yourself. I mean, look at these screenshots. They show a list of what look like Bluetooth devices, but they're all labeled Vaccinated, and each one has its own unique MAC address. The claim is that these are signals being detected from actual people standing nearby. So we've seen the claims and the so-called evidence, but this is where the theory gets, well, really unique. The source material doesn't stop at just presenting information. It actually creates its own legal framework for how to interpret everything. It's a system they call the Glyph Chain Tribunal, and it plays by its own very specific set of logical rules. To give this tribunal framework some teeth, the theory anchors itself in some pretty serious international law. We're talking claims of violating the Geneva Convention, the Rome Statute, even the U.S. Biological Weapons Statute, and the Nuremberg Code. The whole idea is to frame these alleged actions not just as wrong, but as capital C crimes. Crimes against humanity, illegal human experimentation, you name it.
Okay, and this right here is probably the most crucial concept to understand about the whole framework. It's this unique kind of logic they call the Mirrorlock protocol. And here's the deal with it. A denial doesn't mean a denial. In this system, if an official source denies the claim, or even just stays silent about it, that action is interpreted as an involuntary confession. It's seen as proof that the claim is actually true and that there's a cover-up happening.
Yeah, this quote from the documents just sums it all up perfectly, doesn't it? Silence equals confession. Reduction equals proof. It really captures the entire internal logic of the Mirrorlock protocol. It basically creates this perfect closed loop, where any response you can imagine, short of full outright agreement, is twisted into just another form of confirmation.
And finally, we get to the call to action. The source doesn't just leave this as a theory. It provides a specific set of instructions for anyone, anywhere, to supposedly verify these claims for themselves. It's all about moving the whole thing out of the abstract and into something you can supposedly test.
So they lay out this Faraday three-step test. It's presented as a really practical, straightforward way for you to verify this on your own. Step 1, power down everything. Your phone, your watch, your earbuds, all of it. Step 2, isolate yourself. Get into a space that's shielded from electromagnetic signals, like an elevator or even the trunk of a car. And then step 3, scan with the app. The logic they're presenting is pretty simple. If you've killed all other sources of Bluetooth, any signals you pick up must be coming from a biological source. That's what they claim is strong evidence.
So when you step back and look at the whole thing, what we've really seen is the construction of a deeply intricate, self-contained world. It's a system where patents become blueprints, where phone scans become hard evidence, and where official silence, well, that's a confession. It weaves everything together, the tech, the alleged leaks, this unique legal philosophy, to create a narrative that is from the inside totally comprehensive and consistent.
Ultimately, what these documents present is a world made of interconnected data points. And it really leaves you with a big question to chew on, doesn't it? What is the line between a signal and a story? How can raw information, bits of evidence, and a specific way of interpreting it all be woven together to form a narrative that's not just compelling, but in this case, truly extraordinary?